We are back. Sorry it's taken so long since our last update, but we're back in New Zealand and things are going pretty well for us.
Absolutely. When we came back, we settled back in, relaxed for a bit, and even bought a house.
Yeah, so we're currently at the new house now, and it's been really great, and hopefully it lets us have a bit more time to focus on getting these videos out to you, because kind of took it a bit easy when we got back, relaxed a bit, realised that the entire project was actually a pretty big endeavour, something that I do quite a lot, kind of take on a big task and not realise how big it's actually going to be. So hopefully over the next couple of months we can just ease back into it and get more videos for you to enjoy.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to reliving the bike tour and also sharing it all with you. So if you'd like and subscribe, you'll help us get that to a wider audience.
Yeah, thanks so much, and please enjoy the next instalment of our bike tour adventure in Japan.
Good morning from our park, second park of the trip. This is where we are. House is a lot more close to us this time, but we had a great night's sleep and it's time for our next day.
This being our fourth day on the road, I did some quick morning maintenance to make sure our bikes were running smoothly and no racks would come loose.
The park was beautifully maintained, and we soon saw why as we shared our morning with its caretaker.
The night before, we debated whether our corgi friend would come back, and sure enough, he did. This meant we could give him some panamu to say thanks for the treats he gave us. We said our goodbyes and got ready for the road.
After a leisurely couple of hours packing up in the park, we're going to head up the river valley towards Gotemba.
It's going to be our first major climb day. It's all uphill, so it's going to be a bit different. Wish us luck. See you on the road.
I thought I'd give some quick context to the trip. This is my third time visiting Japan, and Gwen's first. This is also our first ever long distance cycle tour. We've done a couple of shorter cycle trips over the last few years, but decided that Japan was a perfect place to attempt a longer one, being so beautiful and seemingly cycle friendly. Wanting to be prepared, I did some research online, but couldn't find a comprehensive guide to cycle touring in Japan. They all seemed very basic or aimed at day trips. We went into this trip new to the world of travelling by bike, and have already learned so much. So we hope to showcase our experiences for others who might be thinking of doing similar rides in Japan, especially for the first time. Hopefully, these videos give you some insight into the experience.
We just climbed for about 1 kilometre, give or take. It's been all uphill since the campsite, but we've just reached our first kind of major climb, which is at about 9 to 10% grade for about 200 meters. So pretty steep. We might have to get off and push because that was pretty intense. But we'll see how we go and wish us luck. Here we go. Heading up into the mountains. Surely that road on the left is the 10% one. This one through the cutting does not look as steep. Still a climb, but nowhere near 10%. Well, we just made it up the climb. Wasn't super long, but it was pretty steep. Probably about 8 to 9%, I think, in reality. So hopefully most of the climbs on this tour won't get much steeper than that, but they'll probably get longer. So that was a nice little taste. But now we get to drop back into the next valley and it's all going to be downhill from here.
Well, for a short while.
We hope. And then back up the river valley to Gotemba. Let's go.
Now with the hard part done, we got to cruise down the other side. I took this opportunity to let loose a little bit, but Gwen decided to take it nice and slow. This was our first decent downhill stretch, which gave us the chance to feel how our bikes handled with the load of our bags. Even with stable touring bikes, I definitely recommend taking it easy at first. A crash this early would be devastating.
At the end of a descent with no road shoulders, we noticed a Tory gate on the side of the street and decided to take a break.
There was no resting for me. I just had to climb those steps to find out what was at the top. A very humble Shinto shrine. The presence of freshly made zigzag streamers, or shirei, shows that the shrine is well maintained. The view from the top through the trees was great, but we had to keep going. After marvelling at some pretty extensive looking hydroengineering, we soon joined the Sagawa River Valley that would take us up towards Gotemba. Being such a narrow valley, this meant we had to join the main road for certain stretches, and go through some tunnels. Fortunately, the bulk of the ride up the valley was on the old road, quiet, winding, and scenic.
Train lines. Bridge. Gwen. We reached the kind of road we'll be on for most of the day today, going through this river valley. Not going on the highway, but going on these kind of side diversions that presumably used to be the main road. Are more windy, but a lot less cars. So it should be quite pleasant.
Honestly, by this point of the trip, it was obvious that in reality, no guide to cycling in Japan was ever needed. All we needed was the gear we'd packed, plenty of food, and an adventurous spirit. Sure, we could research tips and tricks to help us along, but discovering what worked for us and taking things at our own pace made it much more fun than following someone else ever could. That's what slow travelling is all about.
By this point in the trip, I was contending with some pretty hefty hay fever, and I suspect this is the reason why. What looks like mist rising from these hillsides is actually pollen.
We've just reached a point going up the river valley where we have to get onto the secondary road. We've just been on the tertiary road, and up here is the primary road, the big highway. And it even looks like they're building a bigger one further in the distance. But we have to go on the busier road for about 3.5 k's, which includes a tunnel, because it's the only real way to get through. So, see how that goes.
Despite our apprehension, we managed a car-free trip across the bridge and soon found a footpath on the other side.
Nothing lasts forever, of course, and we were back on the busy road for a short stretch before taking advantage of a painted shoulder leading us to the tunnel. This being the longest tunnel of the trip, shared with road traffic, I was a bit apprehensive as to how safe it would be on bikes. Google Maps was a bit unclear as to the size of the shoulder, but as you can see, it was very wide. We had no issues at all, even with trucks passing us by.
As mentioned before, sharing the road with fast vehicles isn't Gwen's idea of a relaxing trip. That being said, so far the traffic in Japan had been incredibly polite, and even roads like this have a speed limit of 50k an hour, which is much slower than similarly sized roads back home. If it was just me, roads would be fine, but I was more than happy to take it easy with Gwen. Fortunately, there are plenty of footpaths in Japan that allow cycling as well. Out the other side, it was about another kilometre of road cycling before we had a much needed rest stop.
Even when it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, there's always a konbini nearby for a snack.
The incredible product range, quality and prices, combined with their sheer prevalence, makes convenience stores perhaps the number one reason cycle touring in Japan is so easy. It almost feels like cheating.
We just had a convenience stop, but after a short climb, it's time to try the first energy jelly, which apparently is good for cycling, gives you energy. This one is muscat flavour, so great. And we think it's going to taste like nerds. So fingers crossed for a delicious nerds taste. Yep. I'm getting subtle hints of nerd there.
Oh yeah, the aftertaste is pure nerd.
Yeah, interesting texture.
Yeah, it's pretty lumpy. I mean, I guess it has to mean like jelly can't flow like a liquid, but it's not just a viscous liquid, which I was expecting. It's like lumps of jelly.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll have to try other flavours because it comes in about 6 or 7 different flavours. So grape gets thumbs up, I think.
Yeah, we'll try again.
Yeah.
With 15k's under our belt and 23 more to go, it was back on the bikes to keep riding. The small side roads were a delight to ride. No traffic and amazing views. It was remarkable how much variety we saw, despite only riding through a relatively short distance. Each village we reached had a different feel, and I particularly enjoyed this one, tucked up along the Sagawa River.
We then began our climb out of the river valley towards the plains of Gotemba.
We passed some interesting looking haystacks attempting to navigate our way through a tricky road junction. Once we eventually found our way through, we were rewarded with a spectacular view over the area we had just ridden through, and out towards Mount Fuji. We continued riding, navigating the maze of country streets, with Mount Fuji watching over us. Despite not having clear skies, we were thankful it was cool and crisp. The winter snow had melted, and the summer heat not yet arrived.
Konnichiwa. Arigato.
One part of cycling that became more evident as the days passed was the importance of regular snacks and meals, not just for fuel but to lift our moods. Sometimes it was harder than others to force ourselves to stop when we had places to reach, but we never regretted a snack break, no matter how late we were to camp.
Upon entering Gotemba around 5 PM, we came across this lovely shrine nestled in a small forest of cedars. It had an information board which explained this was a location in the film Senjuro by the acclaimed director Akira Kurosawa. It was a pleasant coincidence coming towards the start of our own video project, so I decided to go in and say a prayer.
We continued towards a potential camping site, past a trout fishing lake, which has magnificent sakura displays when the season and weather is right. Unfortunately today, neither the sakura nor Mount Fuji were in view.
It appears that Gwen's hit her current limit, and that limit is 9%. This is a nice forest road that should take us up to a view of Mount Fuji and potentially a campsite. Although Gwen's pretty keen to go to one of the paid ones further down, which should have better amenities, but also maybe booked. So if it's fully booked, and this doesn't look like a goer, not sure what we're gonna do. Well, despite this being a pretty spectacular place to camp, unfortunately the gate is locked and it's fenced, so I'm guessing they don't really want people going into this area, which is fair enough. It's probably part of the park over there. But imagine waking up to a sunrise over Mount Fuji with that as your view. It's okay, we'll head back down the way we came and go to the holiday park. Hopefully have some success there.
We dropped by the campsite, but sadly it was the same reply as our first night. No vacancies. Well, we're somewhat dejected because our campsite options are diminishing. We've always got the wild camp to fall back on the side of the road, but I think Gwen's pretty keen on having some creature comforts, which is understandable.
Just not, a bit of anxiety that someone's going to tell us off.
Oh, I don't think anyone's going to tell us off. No one goes up there. But we've got our first vending machine experience to distract us from our current situation. So off you go, Gwen. There we go. What did you get?
I got a milk and cocoa.
Yum.
And a hot pan.
Just what you wanted.
That's what I wanted. Sit down to enjoy it.
The next little while was spent searching for other parks that had a potential for camping. For some reason we never considered the fishing lake we'd passed earlier. Maybe we decided there may be too many people around. While Gwen kept looking, I explored the Peace Memorial Park. This park was opened in 1964, funded by the president of a department store in Gotemba. The main structure overlooking the park, called a stupa, houses the Buddha's ashes, a gift from the Indian Prime Minister at the time, along with 4 images of Buddha. The park is decorated with guardian dogs, shisha, and lions from other areas of Asia. It is easy to see why this location would be such a drawcard for tourists, especially in spring. The view of Fuji across the city was impressive, even on a cloudy day. We decided to head back down into Gotemba to check out another park that looked promising, but it was absolutely packed with kids. Having no other options for camping, we decided to go ahead with the first site that we found, beside the forest road. This meant waiting at a family mart until nightfall, so we could set up our tent without being disturbed. We used this time to eat, stock up on food and supplies, relax, read, and do some editing.
Then it was time to head back up the mountain in the dark. Surprisingly, it was much easier the second time.
So after a lot of to and froing through other paid campsites and parks in the town, we've actually ended up back at our first option above the Memorial Park, the Peace Park. We get a great view. We're not super far off the road, but enough that we'll be okay. And hopefully we'll get a really nice view in the morning. So that wraps up day 4 of our cycle tour. Plenty of trials and tribulations. We hope you enjoyed the ride. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying it too, and we'll catch you tomorrow.